The portrayal of villains and antagonists are very important to how impactful the story of a game could be. Whether it's the antagonist that we feel bad for because of their upbringing and can almost sympathize with their cause, even if it's immoral, or a villain with no moral compass who will do anything to reach their own goals. The integration of villains in any story makes an impact not just to the quality of the villain himself, but also the protagonist that opposes them, as they are the direct opposing force in this story. When we narrow this analogy down to the Final Fantasy franchise, we have been introduced to a myriad of antagonists throughout this series. Some are way more menacing than others, but I think from a cinematic standpoint, Final Fantasy XVI has introduced us to an array of villains, one just as menacing as the next in their own unique ways. Of course, we know the main overarching antagonist to be Ultima, who we don't fully get to meet until near the end of the game. But as we play throughout the story, we are slowly told of his origins and goal for the world of Valisthea. The antagonists we meet along the way have their own agendas they are looking to push, but are ultimately, get it, in the service of Ultima. In today's lore video, we are going to go through one of these antagonists, one of the dominants in Valisthea, and perhaps the most manipulative of all the dominants, Benedikta Harma. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I have not posted much content outside of Final Fantasies X and XII, but I'm currently playing through Final Fantasy XVI for the second time, including the DLCs. I am trying to catch up with the other entries in the franchise so we can explore lore and content from different entries of Final Fantasy, and to keep content fresh on this channel. If you are a fan of Final Fantasy XVI, let me know in the comment section below who your favorite character is in the game and why. Also, consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing to the channel for more Final Fantasy content. And before I get started, I do just want to let you know, and I will label this now, it is going to be a big spoiler, so if you have not yet played through the story of Final Fantasy XVI, just keep in mind that there will be spoilers ahead. Now that you have been warned, if you still continue, let's get to it. Now, let's get on with today's lore video. Benedikta was born in the outskirts of Waloed, likely before it reached the state it was in during the events of Final Fantasy XVI, to a poor family. She was sold off to a wealthy family when she was 6 to be their servant girl, and at one point almost killed by her master when she was accused of stealing from them. It was because of this near-death incident that she revealed herself as the Dominant of Garuda and fled. During her escape, she was assaulted by bandits until she was rescued by one Sidolphus Tilamet, and where their connection and relationship began. As someone who grew up with no sense of love, having the feeling of someone coming to her rescue drew out an emotional connection towards Sid, as we see her having strong feelings towards him during the events of Final Fantasy XVI. The duo eventually came under service of King Barnabas, eventually rising to prominent position of his ranks, likely due to their statuses as dominants. Sidolphus became his Lord Commander, while Benedikta was a soldier and eventually joined and raised covert operations. In fact, her surname Harman was bestowed upon her by Barnabas himself, which translates to Servant of God, likely given to her due to her status as a dominant. During her time in covert operations, she was assigned to make contact with Hugo Kupka, a large figure in both figurative and the literal sense of the Dalmatian Republic, with whom she would enter an intimate relationship with. It was around this time that Sidolphus would have a falling out with Barnabas after discovering the true extent of his plans, and he would also flee Waloed, causing Benedikta to develop a lifelong grudge towards him. However, despite this grudge, she still held deep feelings towards him, as despite his desertion, she has attempted to convince him to return to Waloed and be by her side again. But once he refuses continuously, she turns absolutely bitter towards him and now speaks ill of her former savior. To me, this was an interesting analysis of her character, because just simply from the last few minutes of this lore video, we see that Benedikta is someone who values loyalty above all others, considering her upbringing when she served a wealthy family, as well as being easily influenced by her masters. Seeing those she served were normally in very high positions of power and wealth, between the wealthy family and the king of Waloed. But that event when she was rescued by Sid, it formed a deeper connection for Benedikta. It's why she did not easily attempt to get rid of him the moment she got, unlike what she has done when others have attempted to betray her loyalty. She gave him multiple chances, which isn't common unless it was for a very specific and deep reason. We see her in the events of Final Fantasy XVI still in the relationship with Hugo, even if it's not clear if it was genuine or mere manipulation on her end. Clearly with Hugo, he saw it as the former, as after she fell in battle, her head was decapitated by Barnabas and was sent to Hugo to purposely anger him and send him after Clive as part of a master plan to have him go through a trial to become Mythos and eventually the vassal for Ultima. So while Hugo's desire for revenge stemmed from his genuine love for Benedikta, Barnabas saw her as nothing more than a pawn for his scheme, despite her gracing his bed on at least one occasion. It just shows how much deeper the plot on a grander scale beyond one's true loyalty and ambition. So even though I saw Benedikta as someone who really had it out for the party, her path as the Dominant of Garuda was much more pitiful compared to some of the other dominants in the party, as her loyalty was simply taken advantage of at the end of her story, and she was pretty much the first pawn in a grand plan by Ultima and Barnabas, making me almost pity her in a sense. She actually has quite a tragic story, and the mix of that and her ruthless and cold attitude was what made her an effective early game antagonist for me. If anything, the saddest part of her story is at the very end, when she falls in battle after she primes as Garuda against Clive, that she still held the same amulet Sid gave her all those years ago when he rescued her. Despite how she turned out, it showed that there was still that bit of genuine humanity within her. In fact, this is why I think Final Fantasy XVI has quite an ensemble cast when it comes to their antagonists, because each one is designed so well in terms of the connection between their backstory and their personalities, that even though they are enemies to Clive during the events of Final Fantasy XVI, it's hard to see them as true evil beings. Simply poor souls who have been manipulated to their current mindsets. This is a theme that I have a feeling we will come across again as we analyze some of the other characters in the game and in the franchise. Let me know what you thought of this video. I thought Benedikta had a solid character design considering she did not have much screen time in Final Fantasy XVI, but her impact in the story was still effective to many of the other main characters in the game. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more similar content. And comment down below what other characters, events, or questions you want me to cover in future videos. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and I will see you all soon.